Back, ladies, gentlemen, and all of our friends. Welcome to What the Hell is Water, episode 98. If you're from the future, you have no idea that our stream messed up multiple times, so welcome. But if you're from today, hopefully you will find us again on this lovely stream. Today is Friday, May 15th, 2022. This is episode 98 of What the Hell is Water. I am Reed Garcia. I am the founder of Helpful for Life. And I'm here with these three guys who I found in a cardboard box.
Dude, I mean, if I could do it, I would. Rent's too damn high.
That's the truth. That is the truth. Today we are talking about the top 10 movies that these guys think everyone should see at some point in their life. Now, when I gave these guys the prompt, I didn't give them any additional instruction. I didn't say, oh, make sure to include this or get a good spread of genres or, make sure to have one that you think people will like or anything like that. They all interpreted it however they wanted, and they've come to us with their list. And as a quick reminder of who our ensemble cast is, just go ahead and introduce yourself in a sentence or maybe 1.5 sentences. 1.75 is okay as well.
Do you want me to say, why they should respect my opinion?
I think if maybe we should talk about it for a little while, and then, yeah, you should.
Okay. Well, again, my name's Danny Ducio. I'm a graduate of film school, and I'm currently a video editor. So, I know the good stuff. Not really, but to me, I do.
I'm Adam Louder. Hello. I am actor, director. Love movies. Have always loved movies and put a lot of thought into movies. So, trying to give you all my best.
Nice.
Nice to be here.
I like it.
All right, good morning, everybody. I am Brandon Jones. Where they have a nice movie production director background, I am a normal dude that loves sports.
Normal's a strong guy word,
movies. But so I am a big movie buff. Enjoy watching them. So that's kind of what brought me here today, and pumped.
All right, let's get it. So, without further ado, let us recap the first 5 that everyone listed. And I want to point out that yesterday, some of you guys said, hey, this isn't exactly like my number 10 or my number 9, number 8. This is just kind of a rough thing. But as we get higher up into the counts, we'll see, is number 1 really your number 1? Well, that'll be one of the things that we talk about. But let's go ahead and start out our list over with you, Brandon. What was your number 10?
Sure. My number 10 was Ocean's 11. And to remind everybody kind of how I set mine up. So I picked my favorite genres and subgenres and then took my top movies from each of those. Ocean's 11 came in as my top movie in a heist genre.
Nice. Adam?
I chose the film Come and See, war film, Russian film made by Ilem Klimov. It was 1985. It's a very gritty, dark, realistic war film, and I feel like if you're going to watch one of those, you might as well look at the realest one, the hardest one to watch, because it's a tough subject, but film's pretty powerful. So if you can stomach that, check it out. If not, don't worry about it. Watch Ocean's 11.
Don't worry about it, sweetheart.
It's me?
Yeah.
Okay. My number 10 was Rashomon by Akira Kurosawa. It's a Japanese film from the 50s. Essentially, it's a story evolving around, I guess you'd say it's a mystery drama. You hear 4 different perspectives of the story, and they all think they're telling the truth. Kind of like a predecessor to The Usual Suspects, if anyone's seen that. But it kind of leaves it up to the audience to decide what ultimately happens, who you believe is correct.
I played Clue once. Is it like that?
Not really.
Cool. Anything else you want to add on that?
No, I don't want to.
Nice. Adam, your filter's a little low. Shift it just a little high.
Yes.
There you go. Just move it. There you go. Perfect. All right. So that was number 10. Number 9, Danny, what you got with number 9?
Number 9, I have Dumb and Dumber. I think it's probably the perfect comedy. So, yeah. Great cast, great writing, all kinds of jokes, highbrow, lowbrow, poop. That is everything.
So you said perfect comedy. This is what I would maybe call a stupid comedy, and I don't know the official term. Do any of y'all have an official term for this type of movie?
Slapstick comedy, maybe?
Slapstick comedy?
It might be official.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I agree.
So for those who are like, I don't want to watch a stupid comedy, or I won't stoop to that level, or those jokes are stupid. Who laughs at feces? Those idiots. Like, what would you
It's
guys
me.
say to that?
Yeah. I mean, if you don't think Dumb and Dumber's funny, I don't know what you would think is funny. Like, I think it has something for everybody. So I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. Any other comments on that, guys?
Oh, I can tell you. When did we decide it came out?
94.
94. I think.
So I saw it when I was real young. Laughed my ass off. Watched it probably 6 months ago. Still.
Yeah.
That's a good test.
Do any of us go a week without pulling a one-liner out of that movie?
Not really.
Not really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's aged well. It still hits.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an all-timer.
Yes.
And I think a big thing for me, at least with comedies in general, but especially with stupid comedies, it's all about expectations. Like, you don't go into, say, Nacho Libre
Also good.
or Napoleon Dynamite and expect it to be something it's not, right? Just go in knowing, like, hey, this is meant to be a comedy that's probably a little stupid, probably going to make some silly jokes that are, beneath some people or whatever, but just go in with that expectation and try and laugh and try and have a good time. If you're going to go to a stand-up comedy show and sit there and say, make me laugh, then you're probably not going to laugh as much. And another thing I was going to say about comedy is the environment, I feel like, makes such a big difference. Like, if you're watching it just by yourself, if you're Danny, I'm sure you're going to laugh regardless. But if you're a little more likely to laugh, I feel like, if you're in a room with more people and everyone's having a good time, because not everyone's going to laugh at every joke. But the more people who are laughing, the more
contagious.
fun it is. Yeah, it's kind of contagious. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Adam, over to you.
Number 9 for me was The Shawshank Redemption, based on the story by Stephen King, directed by Frank Darabont. Great film, one of the all-time great films, great dramas. It's pulls at your heartstrings. It's very emotionally engaging. It's interesting. It's kind of mysterious. To me, it's just one of the all-time great movie viewing experiences with an amazing payoff at the end. Very good movie.
All right, Brandon, over to you.
Yep, for my number 9, I went with Whiplash. Miles Teller, J.K. Simmons. This is also an emotional movie. It's raw, intense, pulls at the emotions. I will say it is pretty much 100% drama movie. It's got some music mixed in there, so if you like music, some badass drumming. That movie is great.
Cool. Brandon, we'll stick with you, and we'll just do one more.
Yep. So this is over to the the gangster mob subgenre, and I went with The Departed. All-star cast. Martin Scorsese.
Yep.
He makes amazing gangster movies, and this one's probably one of his newer gangster movies. Not his newest, but newer of some of his bunches. And the cast is just all time.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I like that. Adam?
For my next one, I chose Jurassic Park. Phenomenal movie. It's very entertaining. I think does such a great job of really putting you in the situation of what would it be like if humans somehow brought dinosaurs back, and they do a great job of setting it up, and then it's just a ride, from the middle all the way to the end.
Mm-hmm.
My first movie theater viewing experience, and I'll never forget it. Great movie.
Yeah. I think Jurassic Park also kind of defined what a blockbuster should be as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so we didn't talk about it yesterday, but one thing I just want to quickly ask you guys is, are there certain movies that you will make a point to go see in the theater or even the IMAX? Do you think that makes a big difference on your
Jurassic
experience?
Park would be one for sure.
Yep. I would agree.
Yes.
I think you have event movies, and then you have movies that
Mm-hmm.
you can just watch at home. And typically, if they got loud and big CGI in some cases, or high production value type movies, those are typically the ones that spend more time focusing on the theater experience while filming, versus something that might be an indie or a more A24 movie. In some cases, those might be more dialogue, not so much noise or in your face, and those ones you can probably watch at your home and have just the same experience.
Yeah. And for those who aren't aware, CGI, computer-generated images or imagery, just fancy way of saying cool stuff on screen, like explosions and aliens and motion tracking and things like that.
Think of a Marvel movie.
Yeah. And then you said something A24. What is A24?
It's like an art house film studio,
Okay, cool.
production company, I guess.
Nice. All right, so one other thing that we may talk about on a future episode, or maybe if this becomes a separate show one day, is when to. I just completely lost my train of thought on that one. So we'll just move past it. Was that you last?
No, it was Adam.
All right, then go for it.
It's my number 8. I also have a Scorsese film, Raging Bull. It's a boxing movie with Robert De Niro, Joe Pesci, typical Scorsese cast. This one's pretty unique in the sense that I like it from like a sound design perspective. They did a couple cool things with how they recreated the sound of like punching and like hitting skin and impacts and stuff like that. Then also has its Scorsese stuff too. So
Yeah, and one of the fun things about sound design, there's something called Foley noise, which Adam, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but basically recreating sound or making sounds to be a sound effect that sounds like something. And sometimes it's not exactly the same thing. So like one of my favorites is well, of course, there's like the horse clocking, which, if anyone's seen what's it?
Monty
Monty
Python.
Python. I can't even think of that without thinking of that.
Yeah.
But there's other things like punching and stuff like that. I think they use like pig carcasses and things like that to get that fleshy sound. And there are people whose entire job it is just to like figure out these weird things where it's like, oh, well or like the roars in Jurassic Park. There's some pretty cool stuff I've heard before, so go online and search it, but about how they made the dinosaur roars. It's like the combination of all these different things. I think a jet engine was involved, and they like slow it down, they add effects, and maybe even layer on different things. So you can fact check me on exactly what it is, but I remember the sound design on those roars being pretty cool, because who knows what a T-Rex roar sounds like? Nobody. There's just no way, right?
Nobody.
Not too many things stand out more than a movie than a bad punch.
Yeah.
A bad comedy or a low budget action film. You think of like Steven Seagal. I mean, half his movies, the
How
punching
dare
sounded
you.
insane. But at the same time, that's what made his movies so sweet.
Yeah.
That gives them that feeling, right?
Or Claude Van Damme. Same scenario. His punches in those movies sound ridiculous in some cases.
I gotta say, now that I'm on the end of creating more stuff, like I pay more attention to that type of thing, and the freaking door creaking sounds that are done poorly, and also the sword pulled out of like a leather sheath and it still goes fink. You're like, really? That wouldn't have happened. Oh, of course, there's the classic Wilhelm scream, which is used everywhere.
It's just so good. You have to use it at this point.
Yeah. All right, Danny. So what is your next one on the list?
My next one is The Apartment, directed by Billy Wilder, starring Jack Lemmon and Shirley MacLaine, who have all been in fantastic movies. I chose this one pretty much because it's shot mostly in one scene in a small apartment. Obviously, there's some other locations because it involves a corporate office building. But most of the action takes place in this one scene. So it's kind of cool to see how much you can do, how much emotion you can evoke with just a small space.
Nice. I like that. Adam?
The Big Lebowski was my next one. It's a hilarious movie, kind of like what Brandon was saying about the first time you see it. I was younger. I laughed a lot, and then as I got older, I just appreciated it more and more. And just the specificity of those characters in that story, it's so funny because they're so uniquely themselves. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of a few genres packed in one, but it's hilarious. So definitely check that one out.
So that's a cult classic for sure. Dumb and Dumber probably qualifies under the cult classic. Mm-hmm. Being as old as they are and potentially aging better, like a fine wine.
Exactly.
It'd be interesting to get a bunch of, I forget what generation we're on now, but young kids these days, those young whippersnappers, to have them watch some of these things and see what their reactions would be. Because, you can't deny that there's some nostalgia factor for a lot of these movies since, we're largely late 80s and early 90s kids. So I would be curious to hear, that's not like what I see on TikTok. I imagine that's what the kids would say. I don't really know kids.
Well, I think with those, they're just so well written. There's not too much generational humor in them. They're just it's funny because it's funny. It's not like, well, it's only funny in the 90s.
Yeah.
So like I don't know. I think they're well written, so I think that's why they're still funny.
That's why they have that staying power, huh?
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, Brandon, what's your next one?
Yeah, I guess my number 7 was a comic book movie, my top comic book movie, and that is The Dark Knight. Christopher Nolan, directed it, and I think he's one of the top kind of directors of our generation here. The way he tells the story is amazing. Well, and on top of that, you got one of the best performances of any actor ever, I would say, with Heath Ledger as the Joker. We could talk all day about Jokers, like I said yesterday, but that performance drilled in my head as one of the best performances I've ever seen from an actor. So that takes the cake for my top superhero movie.
Yes, and for those who aren't aware, Dark Knight is a Batman film. Just in case some of you have not heard of it, though I bet most of you have. Brandon, what's your next one?
My number 6 from yesterday was my top action movie. Maybe there's a little bit of recency bias here, but I still love it. Seen it multiple times the last couple of years, over the last few years. Mission Impossible Fallout, the sixth Mission Impossible of the franchise. You don't see that too often, but somehow they managed to keep getting better. And because of that, I am super pumped for number 7 that comes out, I think, end of this year.
Cool. Adam?
My number 6 was 12 Angry Men. It's kind of off of what Danny was saying about one room, one place. This is a film from 1959, written by Reginald Rose, directed by Sidney Lumet. His first feature film, although he had been doing television for a long time. And it's 12 jurors, 11 are in consensus, 1 is not. And it's the story of argument and persuasion and perspective and the power of one opinion and how it can influence others. I think that's important for people to see, and it's all about listening.
Nice.
Listen to your fellow human. So
Cool.
that's a good one.
Danny?
My number 6 was Reservoir Dogs by Quentin Tarantino. If you haven't seen Tarantino, you probably should. Some people think he's overly violent, but I think it plays a part in the movies and the aesthetic of the overall film. Reservoir Dogs specifically, it plays with timelines. You kind of go back and forth, current, present, future, all over the place, not in sequential linear order. So I think it's pretty unique and has a banging soundtrack.
Yeah.
So
If there's one thing we like, it's banging soundtracks.
yeah.
Yeah. And I will say that for the violence thing, I mean, that's certainly something that, at least that I've observed over the last, say, especially 10 years, but probably 20 years. It's just, we've all gotten more and more desensitized, I think, to violence,
Yeah.
language, nudity, all of these things, right?
Which is interesting because I did some film school stuff over in the UK, and so I got to go to their rating system building and all that, and like violence for them is like a straight. I can't remember what their like highest rating is.
R, effectively, but something different, right?
But comparable to an R, if there's any kind of violence in it, it's like straight there.
Interesting.
Whereas like here, like, well, it's PG-13.
Yeah.
But like for them, if they have like nudity and stuff and swearing, it's like whatever. But for us, if you show a boob,
It's
you can't do that.
it's an interesting cultural
Yeah.
difference, right? And
Somehow James Cameron got around it in Titanic. Made it PG-13 somehow.
Well, if you draw it, you know.
I'm not going to say I know that that's at like 1 hour and 30 minutes into the film on VHS. I don't know why I would know
Is
that.
that the first VHS or the second VHS? Because
that where
back in
it
the
kept
day when there were
skipping?
VHSs, Titanic came on 2 cassette or 2 VHS tapes.
Sure did.
And for those of you at home who don't know what a VHS is, it's a tape. It came before a DVD. If you don't know what a DVD is, it's like a Blu-ray, but earlier. If you don't know what a Blu-ray is. The evolution of the rating system may also be another future discussion we could have. Because, what is R from, I don't know, even 30 years ago, but much less further back, versus today has changed, right? The system's kind of shifted and morphed. It's funny, you watch some movies from really long ago, and you're like, this is like PG or what? Like, what's going on with this? And so it's interesting how that system has evolved. Well, with that, let us point out that these were just really quick recaps of what we had yesterday, and the real value that we bring here was the deeper discussion about why these movies hit so hard, and also some of the other movies that made us think of, some of the other movies that directors did. So make sure to check out yesterday for that. We wanted to give you guys a good little recap, but let's go ahead and dive into our top 5. let's go ahead and start out with you, Brandon. What's your number 5?
All right, I'm gonna go with my favorite. I guess my top drama. Now, this is a pretty broad genre. You could probably put a lot of movies in here, but I had to narrow it down to one, and I went with Spotlight.
I don't know if I've seen that.
Really?
Yeah.
So it's essentially
2015.
about the uncovering of Catholic priest corruption, and it started in Boston, and then you realize in the movie how, how they just uncover how broad it is across the United States and the world in some cases. You got Mark Ruffalo, Michael Keaton, but love both those guys. Rachel McAdams is in there as well. And Mark Ruffalo, that dude, he loves a drama and he loves to go all in on his roles. He like almost gets transformative into his roles. A lot of people these days probably think of him as the Hulk.
Yeah.
Remove him from the Hulk. When he's not the Hulk, he's an amazing
solid
actor.
actor.
He's
Yeah.
amazing. So that one takes the cake for me at top drama.
Yeah, I'll say real quick, the acting perspective with Ruffalo, he's great. He was trained by the same teacher that trained Marlon Brando and Robert De Niro.
Hey, makes sense then.
And she was much older at this point. Obviously, Mark Ruffalo is younger than those two, but there's a video, if you can look it up on YouTube, it's pretty viral. He's doing a scene and she just rips him to shreds. He's like in his early 20s, and she's like, she just lays into him. But you can see even then he had a dedication.
Yeah, it goes all the way down to his mannerisms. He's amazing with mannerisms, his hand gestures, his facial tics, if his characters have those. He's just so spot on, and you see him in all these different movies, and somehow he doesn't pull you out of the movie as being Mark Ruffalo. You see the person he's playing, and I think that is special, especially with some of the actors these days.
Nice. So that was yours, right?
Yes,
So Adam,
Spotlight.
what you got?
Number 5, a lot of mine are going to be drama. I'm going to just preface that. So, Brandon, I'll go with the drama as well, obviously, for this one. This is There Will Be Blood, Paul Thomas Anderson.
I drink your milkshake.
Yes.
Exactly.
I've never even seen the movie. I just say that all the time.
It's amazing. You got to watch it.
Yeah, it's great.
I'll sell you, Reed. I'll sell you. This is a film where it's well over 2.5 hours, and there's no dialogue for the first 17 minutes. And I don't know if you'll be more engaged in a movie at the very beginning.
That's a hard sell. I think a lot of people would, as soon as you said that, it's like saying like, oh, it's in black and white. What? I'm not going to watch that
Right,
crap.
Right. I think from frame one and the sound design and everything that Paul Thomas Anderson does with that, and it's Daniel Day-Lewis who plays Daniel Plainview, the protagonist, one of the greatest performances of all time on film. It is a ride. It is a ride, and it's about greed. It takes place in the late 1800s, early 1900s. This guy's in pursuit of oil, and to just watch him do anything, stop at nothing to get all the oil is amazing.
And I say you feel the hardships of him having nothing and then becoming something, and how he gets there and how hard it actually is. They do a great job of projecting that, and you really understand the time that they're in and how brutal it is.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's interesting. And, I think there's always a good time to pay attention to greed, right? But especially now as we're in the world of multi-billion-dollar companies that are more valuable than entire countries. For reference, just so you guys have a number, Apple, this in their first quarter, 30 or 300, either way, $1 billion in profit, not revenue, just profit. I did the math the other day, and it was like for every person in the U.S., not even just an adult, it was like you could give them like $100 or something, and you'd still break even. It's just like stupid how much money.
Probably
they
give
make.
him like 1,000, like 10,000, and still be fine.
Yeah, it's just like, man, it's ridiculous. All right, so when we get over to you now, right, Danny, what you got?
My number 5 is Sunset Boulevard. If you have not seen this movie, it's probably one of the most iconic opening scenes. And you know that like DJ record scratch? I bet you're wondering how I got here. It's probably like what started all that. So essentially, the opening scene, I'm not spoiling it because it's the opening scene. It's just a dead dude floating in a pool. And it's like, I bet you're wondering how I got here. But it's pretty great. Essentially, short synopsis. Dude's a writer. Stumbles across this silent film era famous actress to her house. She's delusional, thinks she's going to be the next big thing. She's writing a script. He's kind of down his luck, so he takes on writing the script, and then delusions of grandeur take over, and then it's a wild ride from there. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's ranked on like the top 100 for a reason. Yeah, opening sequence, amazing. Storytelling, writing, amazing. Yeah, all around classic movie.
I like it. We'll go back over to you then. What you got next?
Next, I have Adaptation by Spike Jonze. If you
Writing back to back.
Yeah, writing back to back.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen any Spike Jonze movies, do it. They're pretty interesting. His most famous one is probably Being John Malkovich.
Her as well with Joaquin Phoenix.
His newest one is, I don't know if it's his newest one, but it's
pretty recent.
It's a recent one.
I didn't know he did her.
Adaptation essentially revolves around Nicolas Cage is the main character. Meryl Streep's also in it. But he's a writer. Same thing, kind of down on his luck. And his brother, also played by Nicolas Cage, is like kind of gung-ho whatever, just writes to him crappy action movies. And he ends up selling a script, and then it kind of devolves into like there's real people playing fake people, and there's fake people playing real people, and there's like it feels like you have no idea what's going on, and then by like 3/4 of the way into it, you're like, holy shit.
What is the genre?
Drama, suspense,
Okay.
maybe.
Okay.
I don't know.
Try and get a feel for it. I
It's,
haven't seen it before.
It's I don't know. It's one of the more unique movies I've seen.
Is Nick Cage playing two characters?
Yeah,
Oh, interesting.
and it's also he's
Might be able
also
to get on
playing.
board with that.
He's playing a real writer named Charlie Kaufman, who also, if you haven't, he's a great film writer also. Like it's connected to New York and all that kind of stuff.
He's great.
Yeah, Charlie Kaufman's great. But yeah, it's a very unique movie. Kind of same thing with Tarantino, where like the timelines are kind of all over the place, and going back between what's real, what's not. Do you know what's real, what's not? And so yeah, it's a ride.
Nice. And I will say, Her, what was 2013, so recent, but not super recent.
That's true.
But I really like that movie, Her. Just real quick on the synopsis of that one is it's also a very timely movie. It was timely then, but even more so as time goes on, because it's about a guy who is interacting with his AI, his AI assistant, his SIRI. I won't say the name in case I want to trigger everybody's phones, or your Echo or whatever it may be. And it says, okay, what it looks like his relationship with his computer, with his phone, and sees what happens as he gets to know it a little better. And a little teaser is the voice is Scarlett Johansson. So just think about what happened if you had Scarlett Johansson talking to you all the time. So it's an interesting movie, and I'm sure after you watch it, you might be able to think of some people in your life. You may be like, huh. All right, Adam, what you got?
My number 4, I'm going with John Cassavetes' film, 1974, A Woman Under the Influence, starring his wife, Jenna Rollins, and one of the greats, Peter Falk. A lot of people haven't heard of this movie or haven't seen this movie. John Cassavetes is a pioneer of the independent filmmaking movement in the late 50s. His first movie he made was called Shadows in 59, and he went on to totally obliterate the establishment despite him being a very successful actor. And he decided to really say, no, it's about the director's vision, the artist's vision, the writer's vision. The artists are the ones that need to make great movies. And this is in the heart of the new Hollywood era, 1974. This is when the directors took back control, where the studios formerly had power. So you have a whole decade of really great films coming out of the 70s, and this guy was kind of leading the charge. And A Woman Under the Influence, I think, is probably to me, he has great movies, but probably his best film. It's just so real. The writing is so good. The acting is so good. It's so authentic, and it's so immersive, and you feel for these characters immediately. And you go on a ride that I just think you don't expect. and I just think it's brilliant movie.
Cool. I look forward to checking that one out. Brandon?
All right. I'm going for a genre we have not touched on yet. Sports.
Ooh.
Sports ball.
Now, and this one was hard to narrow down, obviously. A lot of good sports movies out there, but I narrowed it down to what I think is number one. You can argue about this all day, potentially, but my number one is Miracle. It is about Disney movie, 1980 U.S. Olympic hockey team goes on to win the gold medal, beating Russia in the semifinals. And that was the big beat because Russia was amazing for years prior, and that year as well. They had just smoked the USA in a prelim match right before the Olympics, and so for us to get through the Olympics and beat Russia in the semifinals was humongous. We obviously went on to win the finals. But Kurt Russell plays Herb Brooks, the head coach. All-time head coach performance, in my opinion. Right up there with probably Denzel Washington. Remember the Titans, but Herb Brooks takes the cake for me. Every time he gets a speech right before they walk out on the ice to play Russia, and gives a speech every time. And doesn't matter how many times I've seen this movie, I get chills every time. Something like great moments, breed great opportunity. Great opportunity breeds great moments. I might be butchering a little bit, but the speech goes on a little further and cannot get out of that scene without getting chills. And I think one thing that makes that movie so great is that a lot of sports movies, you're sitting here watching it and you're like, that doesn't look like they're playing basketball at all, or that doesn't look like they're playing football at all. Those guys can't, they're clearly not athletes.
Yeah.
Well, in this movie, they took actual hockey players. And so the hockey they show looks really good on TV. And the intensity and, Herb Brooks kind of takes this team and this is prior to them even putting NHL players in the Olympics. So these are all college players. And he builds this squad when people said, hey, that's not the best team she's putting on the ice. And he essentially says, hey, this is a team that I need to win with my structure. And behind people saying don't do it, he picks his guys, trains his guys up. It's not always easy for these guys either. They don't get along at times. They have to build a team, and the way it's told is fantastic. The bonding is great. And who can't get emotional about the United States?
Yeah, I got to say there's a lot of things in that one, and it's definitely has that inspirational, I mean, that one will make you feel things, right? And that's probably one of the reasons why it stuck out so much to you, is because you do feel something, and there's definitely the crescendo and the payoff and all that kind of stuff that gets you going. But I'm also, it's cool that they actually took the sport seriously, because it seems like a pretty, I don't know, maybe I'm talking out of my ass here, but it seems like it's not that big of a step to do, hey, get real players to play the sport. And
yeah, because typically good, athletes that are playing the sport full time are not good actors. So I mean, there's definitely some scenes where you're like, oh, they. You can tell they're not traditional actors.
But it was the team they needed to make that movie happen.
Hey,
but I am surprised. I was like, especially you being a baseball guy, I was like, no Field of Dreams, no, what's the Moneyball? That was another one I thought you might have chosen, especially when you're talking about, having this is the team that I need to win the thing. Moneyball is very similar type of thing.
Yep. And at the end of Miracle, you get some nostalgia footage as well. Do you believe in miracles? You get the actual footage, and it's great. It gives you tons of feels.
Cool. And I would not be surprised to see that there's been a bump, with the whole Russia conflict going on. We're like, we want to get one over on the Russians. Yeah, let's watch Miracle. We can do it. All right.
It'll make you feel good about taking down.
Yeah, for sure. So I think it's you again then, huh, Brandon?
Okay. So my next movie, I'm going to go comedy. My first comedy of the bunch. It was difficult not to put more than one comedy in this top 10 listing for me, but I did go one, which I narrowed it down to Tropic Thunder. Tropic Thunder. Star-studded cast.
Yeah.
Ben Stiller directs it. Which, in my opinion, he doesn't direct enough. I hope he gets back into. I hope he gets into directing more. Some of his recent stuff is Walter Mitty and Severance.
Did you see Escape at Dannemora?
No.
I haven't seen it either.
I don't even think I've heard of it. Say it again.
Escape at Dannemora. You got to watch it.
Okay.
You're gonna freak out. It's maybe the best thing he's directed. This was a couple years ago. It's a Prison Break true story. Benicio del Toro, Paul Dano, and Patricia Arquette. Unbelievable.
Great cast.
And my
Oh,
buddy's
man.
in,
I
my
might have to
buddy's in
watch
it
that
too.
today.
So a little plug there. But it's dude, that is an amazing. I think it's on Showtime. So get a little free trial or something. But
There
yeah,
you go.
Ben Stiller. Ben Stiller's amazing.
Yeah, so I mean, Ben Stiller, I mean, he hasn't been acting quite as much recently, so I hope he's getting into directing because he's a phenomenal director. But this one is kind of a spoof movie a little bit. It's a complete comedy. He doesn't do all comedies when he directs. This is a complete comedy. You got Ben Stiller, Jack Black, Robert Downey Jr., Jay Baruchel.
It is just such a.
I
funny
mean, the
movie.
cast goes on and on. Danny McBride, Bill Hader.
I just pulled up the IMDb and just seeing a screenshot made me laugh.
Dude, it is hilarious.
It's
I have a hard time. The opening scene is a bunch of spoof trailers because the point of the movie is they're making a movie. And Ben Stiller is the lead star in this movie, and he's done some movies prior to walking into the movie they're creating. And so they give you some background on some of the movies he's done with his trailers. And his trailers are completely ridiculous. And they give you trailers for the other actors that are also in the movie, like Jack Black. Just if you watch the first 5 minutes of the opening scene of that movie and are not laughing, then you might not enjoy it. But if you are, keep watching because it's hilarious. It's got Matthew McConaughey in there. Tom Cruise is in there. Tom Cruise, almost unrecognizable.
Yeah.
He has this like fat suit or buff suit on. And he plays the production, I think the executive producer potentially.
That's hilarious. I had no idea he was in there.
I mean,
Yeah.
it is hilarious. The cast is humongous. Honestly don't know how he got this large of a cast to do this movie, but because everyone in there is so noticeable, you know everybody, you recognize everybody, it just makes the movie so much better to see all these guys working together on a comedy because they're all comedians at heart, and to see them doing what they love, you can just tell the passion in that movie, and it's great, hilarious, and
It's funny.
banter
Yeah,
is
it's
awesome.
Yeah, I mean, what a
Very
trio,
funny.
right? Like, and if you need a sentence that convinces you that this movie is funny, they didn't just do blackface. They did blackface for an entire movie, and it felt okay, and it felt funny because he's just the dude playing the dude who's supposed to be the other dude or whatever, something along those lines, right? That is a funny movie. It's been a long time since I've seen it, but also makes me think of Ben Stiller, makes me think of Dodgeball. Jack Black, of course, Nacho Libre, as we were mentioning earlier. Downing, does he do any other comedies that off the top of my head none came to
Jack
mind?
Black?
No, Robert Downey Jr.
Robert Downey Jr.
Due Date?
comedies.
He did
He
Due
did Due Date. Yeah.
Iron Man? No, I'm just kidding.
I don't think he's traditionally a comedy actor, but
He can do it.
He can do it.
He's got chops.
He's very funny.
yeah.
I like it. Adam, over to you.
This is a toss-up, but I had to go with Network, staying in the 70s.
It's a great movie. Yeah.
Network, written by Patty Chayefsky, one of the greatest writers of all time in any genre, bar none. I don't care what you say. This movie is so deep and so good and so real and so scary, but it's a drama. Takes place in just a network, like a CBS or something like that, and their ratings are dying. It's a dying network, and just from moment one to the end, the acting, the writing, the directing, Sidney Lumet's film, Robert Duvall's in it, Faye Dunaway. It is. I just recently watched it again. I've seen it so many times. Oh my goodness, the depth of this, the character development, and the story. It's so surreal and crazy in terms of what's happening, but it's so real because pulling back the veil on big corporations and the people behind the machine and what they're doing and how they're talking. It's you watch and you go, this has got to be a documentary, basically. And I think there's some things that it predicts throughout the movie. If you have not seen it, give it a watch.
So a news network, right? I want to ask the morning show. How would you compare that to this?
It's a little bit different. This is a nightly news segment. The anchor is kind of having a breakdown because he's about to get fired. And he starts off by saying, just starts talking, and he's like, by tomorrow, tune in. I'm gonna kill myself on air. And then they're in the switchboard in the room, like Kenny over here, and they're like, "Did he just say he's gonna kill himself?" And they're just shooting the shit, They're just talking. They're like, "I think he just said he's gonna kill himself." He just keeps going. Tune in tomorrow. I'm gonna blow my brains out, and he's dead serious. And they're like, "What? What?" Getting calls. He just said he's gonna blow his brains out on TV. No, he didn't. No, he did. Run it back. Get him off the air. Get off the air. They start pulling him up, and he's like, "What? What?" And then it's just from there, the ratings start skyrocketing, and you watch the people behind the curtain go, wait, don't fire him. Maybe we could keep this going. And you watch how they manipulate stockholder meetings and the CEO, and everyone starts to get involved. And you're like, this is real, man.
It's amazing.
This is real.
Another
It's so good.
Another thing that seems super timely, because in the day and age of social media and
Absolutely.
more division and headlines and clickbait and
Yes.
everything is about the extremes, right? And also, it sounds like maybe even a little bit of taking advantage of someone or using somebody a little bit for the use of money. It sounds like a lot of angles there. The poster says, "Prepare yourself for a perfectly outrageous motion picture." So yeah, that one sounds really interesting. I'll definitely check that one out.
Very good.
Danny, what you got?
My next one is Kill Bill. It is my favorite Tarantino movie. I was putting it here because I like it a lot.
I've never seen it.
Me neither.
Never seen it.
Really?
It's my favorite one. Also, if you couldn't tell, I like Japan and their culture and stuff like that. It deals with katanas and samurais and like ninjas and stuff like that. Stars Uma Thurman, who's great. Essentially, she plays, her character's name is the Bride, and so short story synopsis. She's supposed to get married, and then she's married to like a leader of like a samurai gang or something. And he stages something to kill her, and so they leave her for dead. She's not dead. Comes back with a vengeance. Fighting choreography is great. Aesthetically, colors popping everywhere. Obviously, the yellow tracksuit is an homage to Bruce Lee, which if you haven't seen any Bruce Lee movies, please do. They're fantastic.
Which is like kung fu.
Yeah, martial arts. But yeah, fighting sequence, dope. Outfits, dope. Visuals, dope. Music.
Banger soundtrack?
Yeah. It's Tarantino, dude.
Yeah. So
But yeah, cast amazing. Yeah, I mean, I can't say enough about it. There's a little anime sequence in the middle too, so for me that's. But yeah, we already kind of touched on Tarantino and how he likes to do movies. But this is just my personal favorite of his.
but it's part 1 of 2.
Part 1 of 2. Yep.
And my favorite scene in that movie is when they're fighting in the, I don't know if it's a dojo or where they're at.
Yeah, with the crazy 88s.
Yeah. It's just insane.
It's insane.
And it's so Quentin Tarantino.
Yeah.
So much blood, so much swords, and the fight choreography, I would agree, in that movie is
so
fantastic.
Cool. Yeah. But yeah.
That's a fun sentence. So much blood, so much swords. Check it out.
That's the poster.
Yeah. How does Volume 2 hold up to Volume
It's
1?
good. I don't like it as much as 1, but it's still good. Yeah.
Cool. Well, Danny got you back to back. What you got next?
My number 2, I have M by Fritz Lang.
Going way back.
Yeah, I think it's from the 30s, I believe. It's his first non-silent movie. Essentially, it deals with a serial killer that only kills children. But they never show him actually doing it. But they do a good job of creating a sense of terror and urgency. So every time he is about to do whatever he does, he starts whistling a tune.
Oh.
And so you can just start hearing this whistle, and you're like, oh, fuck. But like, so the whole town's in a frenzy. The police are trying to stop this guy. The underworld crime lords are trying to stop this guy. And you get to kind of see the frenzy that kind of happens. And this person says nothing the whole movie. And then at the end, he gives a really poignant, like, amazing speech. The only time he talks in the whole movie. So yeah, if you haven't seen it, it's a pretty good example of German expressionism too, with the contrast of the lighting, black and white. It's very harsh. So yeah, German expressionism is pretty dope too. Fritz Lang is also amazing if you haven't seen any of his movies. Known for Metropolis, which is a pretty crazy film to have been made that long ago. But yeah,
Ambitious.
yeah. But Emma's pretty amazing. Still holds up well.
That's cool. So yeah, since it's a black and white movie, I'll ask, like, why, for those people who'd say, I'm never going to watch a black and white movie, why would they want to watch this?
I mean, kind of what we talked about before. If the writing's good, it doesn't matter where it's from. If the writing's good, the acting's good, it's gonna be good. Like, and then with black and white too, especially German expressionism, the way they do the harsh contrast, it's kind of almost like film noir. If you haven't seen any noir films, I kind of touched on The Maltese Falcon yesterday, which is an example of a noir film. But the way they play with the shadows and the lighting, especially with like how it looks in black and white, it's really cool. You can do a lot of stuff that you can't really do in color with it, or it contrasts the way it wouldn't in color. So you can do some really harsh lighting and dramatic effects and stuff with it. So.
And I bet that there's a effect, the Pavlovian effect, right? Where it's like you ring a bell and then you get the cheese if you're a mouse, right? And then the mice get trained, like, oh, every time I hear that bell, I'm going to get that cheese. It's a psychological thing, right?
Yeah.
So it sounds like that same kind of thing with the whistling.
Yeah.
And it may be one of those things where it's like, all right, hopefully it's a distinct tune. So you don't just like hear it every now and then in real life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Although that would be fun to do for your siblings or your friends after you watch it, I'm sure. Adam, what you got next?
Sticking with the black and white, I got to go with On the Waterfront.
Ooh.
Elia Kazan, 1954. Marlon Brando, maybe his best on-screen performance.
I think
If you
so.
don't know who Marlon Brando is, I believe he pioneered the form of realistic acting, trained by same teacher as Ruffalo, Stella Adler. And, in the acting world, it's like, BCAD. It's like before Brando and after Brando. It's like BB, AB. It's like this guy, as soon as he bursted on screen in 1950 in The Men and then 1951 with A Streetcar Named Desire, there was something different. He was so real, he was so in the moment, and he was so magnetic, and he was a genius, but he had such great skill and technique. And Kazan is my favorite film director. Pretty controversial figure because he testified in the House Un-American Activities Committee when they were looking for communists in the McCarthy era. And he was forced to name names of those that were communists when he was younger in the 30s. And he was admittedly one as well. But he was trying to say that it's not great. And he was trying to speak up about that. And people ousted him. So it was really a catch-22 situation. But the point is, this happened after his testimony. And there's a very personal statement he's making with this film by saying, I'm glad I did what I did. And he's saying it through the character of Terry Malloy, played by Marlon Brando. On the Waterfront, it's about longshoremen, mob movie. It's about who's really controlling things and the rising of one man's conscience as he's getting closer to the person that he helped kill on accident. He didn't know they were going to do it. But that's how the movie starts off. And as he falls in love with this man's sister, he starts to become aware of the fact that maybe he's tied up with the wrong people and maybe he should do something about it. On the Waterfront.
It's a great movie.
Yeah, interesting. And a longshoreman, is that somebody who loads and unloads ships?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, this was filmed in Hoboken, New Jersey, but it took place in kind of like Red Hook, Brooklyn area back in the 1950s.
Spoken like a true New Yorker.
Yes.
Everyone else is like, oh, I heard of Brooklyn, I guess. What's that Jersey, that armpit place that I've heard of? Brandon, what you got?
All right, my number 2 is gonna go sci-fi. First sci-fi one. I don't know if we've done many sci-fis.
No. No.
So mine is gonna be Arrival
Oh.
by director Denis Villeneuve or Nuve.
Yeah, I don't.
I didn't see it.
He did Blade Runner, Dune, Sicario. So Arrival has Amy Adams, Jeremy Renner in it. So Amy Adams is a linguist, a professor of linguists, and aliens or spaceships come to the world, and somehow she gets recruited by the government to come try to translate because these aliens don't speak English, obviously. And so it's about them coming there and her and Jeremy Renner having to figure out how to communicate with these aliens.
Oh,
and
that's cool.
and yeah, the way it's told, the scale that it's told at is probably my favorite part about it. Talking about theater movies, that one would definitely be a theater movie because visually, Denis Villeneuve loves imagery, making huge scalable scenes. I don't know if you guys have seen Dune or Blade Runner, but they both have insane landscapes that visually are amazing, and this movie is no different. And so Amy Adams has to figure out how to communicate with these aliens, and ultimately she doesn't think she succeeds, but then you find out she may have. So I kind of leave it at that, but the movie itself tells an incredible story about life. And she's had some hardship, and that makes her stronger and better at what she does and how she learns from these extraterrestrials coming to the world. And it's fantastic.
Yeah.
One of my favorite movies. Also a little bit time warping, mental warping. I've seen it a couple times. It's not nearly as warping of space and time as Interstellar is.
Mm-hmm.
It's more grounded in one planet, but still, it'll make you think.
I'll check it out. That sounds cool.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, I mean, for me, actually, that I don't even remember the grand landscapes and stuff as much. I just think she had a really good performance in that movie. But
Oh yeah.
and the scenes I remember most are where she's in the room
Yeah.
trying to communicate with them, and it's also pretty interesting to see, like, hey, how would you communicate with whether it's alien or person or whatever, where it's like not only do they not speak your language, but they may not even understand your way of life at all, right?
Yeah.
And so it's interesting to watch it unfold. And also, if I remember correctly, there's some friction about how she wants to handle it versus how other people want to handle it.
Yep.
I think
She's
the military
battling.
gets involved too, and they're like, do we destroy these things or do we try and communicate with them, right?
Yeah, there's definitely different ways of going at it. What are they doing here? How do we figure out? Do we need to set a timeline on how soon we need to figure out before we have to action that they could be here for, something negative? Are they trying to give us something? Are they trying to take something from us? All those are questions that the military is trying to decide how to handle. She's trying to figure out how to communicate with them and get these answers. So there's a lot of conflict internally. So it's
and
definitely recommend it.
and I could be way off base with this one, but it's not very often a linguist is the main star of a movie. But it did make me think of I'm blanking on the name, something code, where they're trying to decrypt during World War II.
Imitation Game?
No, well, I don't know. There's the two that I kind of may be conflating, but they're trying to decrypt the Germans and the Axis their transmissions without them knowing.
They call it the Enigma.
Yeah,
It's the Imitation Game with Benedict Cumberbatch.
yeah. Well, maybe I'm mixing it up with other ones, but maybe that is the one I'm thinking of. Who knows?
It's also a great movie.
Yeah. All right. So did you do back yet, or is that?
I have not. So I guess my last one, gonna go animated. My first animated one. I think I do watch quite a few animated movies, so
Yeah,
I gotta
for
at
sure.
least give that genre some representation. And I'm going Coco. Prior to that, I might have said Inside Out as being my favorite
that's a
animated
good one.
movie.
Yep.
Yeah.
But when I saw Coco, it tugs at the heartstrings, the emotions, and I think it maybe came at a time where you start to value family as you get older.
Mm-hmm.
And when I saw Coco, I was like, man, that really hit home. It's very family oriented. They might be a little cracked when the movie starts, but as the movie goes on, they realize how important family is too. And man, you can't cry. You can't help but cry at the end of that movie, man. It gets emotional every time. The colors are amazing.
Yeah.
I think one thing I thought was so fascinating and awesome about it was it being an animated movie, and the movement of animation has come such a long way.
Yeah.
Give you a little background. They're in Mexico, the Dia de Muertos, essentially, and they find a path between the living and the dead in the movie. And the young kid, which is based around, ends up on the other side of this realm, which is the dead realm, and he has to learn how to survive. And he thinks he knows what he wants, and he thinks he knows where he's trying to get, which would be to meet his star, because he wants to become a famous guitarist. you later find out that what he thought about this guy might not be what is actually what this guy's actually like. But along the way, he ends up meeting up with family members and learning more about his family. And then he realizes, my grand dreams of being this guitarist and be just like his largest fan at the time or his favorite guitarist is no longer as important as family, pretty much. And he kind of takes his own path from there.
I think it's good for a lot of reasons. I think it's a fun movie as well, and it's so colorful, and the music is very entertaining.
Yep.
And just the concept as well is kind of cool, because I mean, a lot of people think about, hey, if I could talk with my ancestors or what have you. And also, first off, Danielle would be very glad and very proud, because she was like, no one's done any Disney movies yet. I need a Disney movie. And she's a huge fan of Coco. I think it's also a really cool peek into Mexican culture. Now, I'm not going to speak to exactly how accurate it is and things they did right or wrong, but regardless, I think it's a good exposure to a little bit more about Dia de los Muertos and the concept of an ofrenda, which is like an altar where you have pictures of all of your relatives and things like that, and it's about reflecting on your connection with them and some of the rituals around that. And yeah, it's fun, it's sweet, and you'll like the songs, you'll like the goofy dog in it as well, and I like it a lot. It also makes me think of the more recent one based in Colombia that just came out, animated. You don't know about Bruno? None of you guys? Wow.
Encanto.
Yeah, Encanto. Okay, thank you. Yeah, similar Pixar movie based in Colombia. Also family, very much about family, but I think if you like one, you'll probably like the other one. And yeah, so I would check that one out. So that's your number one though, Brandon. Is that right?
My number one animated.
Number one animated. So you're on the fence of like, hey, this isn't my number one, but it's just one of the top 10.
Yeah, I mean, number one favorite movie is definitely going to be different than my number one animated movie.
All right, well, I'm going to put you on the spot. Do you have the number one? Is that even in this list of 10 movies people should see?
Probably not, because my number one favorite movie is probably not what I would consider the best movie that I've seen. My number one favorite movie is probably Tenet right now. It warps my mind every time I see it, and I've legitimately probably seen it 7 times. And every time I see it, I figure out more and more about that movie. That's a Christopher Nolan movie. Mm-hmm. And because it's Christopher Nolan, it messes with time and the concept of time, forward and reverse time in some cases, which is pretty much what the movie's based on. And think about Tenet, spelled the same way, forwards and backwards. That's the concept of the movie. And I'm just fascinated by trying to understand his thought process of making that movie. And it is to think about it and to think like how this man thought this movie up is crazy. And that's got Robert Pattinson in it, and Denzel Washington's son, which I'm drawing a blank on his first
John
name.
David
Washington, yes. And that was really my first movie of John David Washington that kind of came on scene in a big production movie, and I think he did a great job.
And, I know he's not Denzel, but Denzel Washington's one of my favorite actors. I like him a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and I haven't seen Tenet, so I need to check it out. But it also...
You'll need to watch it more than once.
Yeah, well, that's brings up an interesting point, because typically I'm the kind of guy who, if you give me the chance to do something new or to do something I've already done, I'm pretty much always the one to say, oh, I'd rather do something new. And so I don't rewatch many movies or books because... it's for me, it's kind of hard sometimes. I'm like, I know what's about to happen and things like that. So it's cool when there's movies like this where it's like, you're probably not going to grasp all of it right on the first time through. Or even if you do, you're going to be a little bit mind-effed, right? You're like, oh, what?
So if you watch Tenet and you go 1 hour in, what the heck is happening? You're not alone. I don't think you're supposed to know what's going on. You're supposed to try to take it in and try to understand it, but you have a tough time doing it. I will say they do a better job on the back half of giving you more, and you going, okay. But as you get more in the back half, it impacts what you saw in the front half from how you thought you were watching it. So that's the fascinating part. You know, I love it because it's different, it's unique, it's not an ordinary movie, it's not an ordinary action or drama. It is one of a kind.
I want to say something on that real quick. What you just said reminded me of one of the best film and sound editors ever, Walter Murch. He did a lot of great films. You know, he worked on Godfather. You know, he worked on Apocalypse Now. Worked with Francis Ford Coppola a lot. Did Conversation, English Patient. Great guy, amazing mind, but really good editor. He said something that has always stuck with me from a storytelling perspective, which he said, you want the audience to not just be a spectator. You want them to be a participant.
Yeah.
So something like Christopher Nolan's films, Memento, and these great use of making you think, engaging your mind, engaging your emotions. You know, you feel with them, and it makes the viewing experience much better because you're not just sitting there watching. You're like involved.
Yeah, you're trying to think, okay, what's coming next? Why is this happening? And you are very engaged in his movies and most of his movies, but Tenet especially. And like I said, I had to watch it a couple times, and every time I watched it, I picked up a new snippet. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, that's happening on this timeline in some cases. So, it won't. You can't get it all, and you can't digest it all in one watch.
Yeah, and a couple other movies that I think of when you say that. Well, Interstellar. Well, no, Inception is actually the first one that popped in my head.
Inception is fantastic as well.
Inception, and then another one is Shutter Island, which
It's a great movie.
that's another one where
Scorsese.
and yeah, Scorsese, and also
And Ruffalo, Mark Ruffalo.
it's funny because when I looked it up, the description said a neo noir. So if you can go check out the noir, and you can check out the neo noir.
Yes.
Well, cool. So that was Brandon's. Let's go over to you, Adam. What you got?
My number one choice is my number one and my favorite at the same time, and it's A Wonderful Life. Frank Capra, 1946, Christmas film.
You want the moon? I'll get you the moon.
Oh, I shall pull her down. Great film. If you haven't seen it, you probably have, but if you haven't, definitely check it out. It's got all the feels. Jimmy Stewart, post World War II, which he was involved in, comes back to acting. Oh man, just does a killer job. I don't know. I've watched it dozens of times. I never think, okay, every time I'm like, I'm not going to cry. I've seen it. I know what's going to happen. I know this movie backwards and forwards. Every single time I'm sobbing at the end. They're singing Auld Lang Syne, the money, and I'm just like a bucket of tears. Great one. Obviously Christmas themed, but
Yeah.
fantastic nonetheless.
Well, it reminded me of one of the things you were saying, audience, or you were saying about the audience, you want them to be involved or whatnot. I mean, that's part of what makes a good movie or TV show or really any kind of entertainment is you're manipulating the audience in a way to make them feel and think in a certain way throughout the film, right? And the better you do that, in my opinion, the better you are at that craft. And like we talked about with Miracle earlier, one of the reasons that's so good is because it takes you on that emotional journey, right? So it's very similar, it sounds like, with Tenet and with It's a Wonderful Life. And It's a Wonderful Life, I have to mention, is one of my I like that one a lot too, because that's one my family and I have watched. It's honestly probably the movie I've seen the most because it is on Christmas. It's also probably one of, if not the most replayed movies on TV. Because one, it has such good staying power and people like to watch it and things like that, and it's a lot of people's tradition, right? It's definitely one, as I was growing up, I didn't appreciate as much, and it's a little bit slow. You would think, and it's like a black and white, you're like, oh man, come on, but it's really cool, and it has those concepts of family again, and one of the things is like, how much do you put other people's desires and wants and dreams in front of your own? Because I don't know if you mentioned it or not, but he has these dreams of going to explore and going to get out of this small town. And did you mention the overall concept of?
No.
Do you think that's okay to tease?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So go ahead. You say it.
So he's like you said, he's in a small town, Bedford Falls. His dad's got a family business, and his dad is expecting him to go into the family business, take it over, and he really wants to explore. He wants to travel the world, and he, like you said, he wants to follow his dreams, but things keep happening that are bringing him back, and it's frustrating to him, but he keeps sacrificing his own dreams for those of others. And as he falls in love and gets a family and all this stuff, it leads him to wanting to have never been born. And there's a guardian angel watching over, and that's when he jumps into his life.
Clarence.
Clarence. Clarence. That's my tricker, George. No, he basically says, I'm going to show you what it's like if you'd never been born. And so you walk through that, and it's pretty imaginative. And like Danny keeps saying, the writing is so great, and it's right to the heart, I think, of the human experience in so many ways. It doesn't shy away from the darkness and the feelings, and I think that's what sets up that wonderful catharsis at the end.
And I don't know. I just think, again, if you haven't watched this, or if you have, but you watch it under the guise of this is a Christmas movie, I would encourage you to go back and just watch it and like sit there and really pay attention and get immersed in it, because especially if you're someone who's, now is a great time to watch it post-COVID. Like if you're someone who's ever struggled with depression or wondering like, what's the point? Like it's great because this is a movie that shows you like, what would it be like if I wasn't there? And you can see the ripple effect, and you can see that the impact you have on people's lives is a lot more than you remember, and you don't realize all the things that happen, because the reality is most people don't tell you, hey, you did this or you did that, and that changed me in this way. But when you get to see it in this way, I mean, I'm getting choked up now because
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. It's an impactful movie.
Yeah.
If you're not even watching it and you're just thinking about it. It's choking.
Yeah, so
Absolutely.
it's a great one, and lots of good memorable scenes, and and he's a fun actor. Yeah,
Oh yeah, I
I like him.
He's great.
All right, Danny, what you got?
My number one is also my favorite movie. It's Seven Samurai by Akira Kurosawa.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much if you've seen any series of assembly in a movie, so like the Avengers or something, how they assemble is pretty much loosely based off this movie. But essentially, short synopsis: Kurosawa, Japanese film from the 50s. This village is kind of being harassed and ransacked by bandits. They can't stop them, so the only thing they do is they can find this lone wandering Ronin, which a Ronin is like a masterless samurai. And so they ask him to help. After a little bit, he decides, hey, okay. Then he goes and rounds up some of his buddies. And essentially, 7 samurai defending this village from a horde of bandits. But it's kind of cool to see how they do it. Even back from then, I think you always know how many bandits are left alive. Until they're not. Yeah, I mean, it's storytelling is great. Honestly, if you couldn't tell, I've already said it a couple of times, but I really, really like Japan. So anything I can learn about their culture and stuff like that too is always intriguing to me. Yeah, it's just a fun movie, and his influence can be seen in like any modern movie.
Absolutely.
Like if you've seen, he did a movie called The Fortress, which is pretty much what Star Wars is loosely based off of. So Star Wars also honorable mention.
Great.
But yeah, Kurosawa was fantastic. They'd probably categorize him as like the most Western of Japanese filmmakers. So I don't think they're particularly like, Japan doesn't really want to showcase him as like their best director. They have other directors like Ozu who are also great.
Mm-hmm.
But I love Kurosawa's films. I think they're fun. They're super interesting. Story writing's great. Characters, his actors he always uses are great too. So
Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, was it the same director of one of your other films in your top 10?
yeah, that was my number 10.
Which was what?
Rashomon.
Rashomon. Yeah, and that's interesting. And I'm gonna have to check these out because I've not seen either of those, and I have not heard of this guy. So I think that's pretty cool.
Seven Samurai. That's one of those movies that's on like some of the top list of.
You know, like
all time.
if you've seen The Magnificent Seven, which is a Western, it's pretty much a Western derived from that movie.
The new one or the old one?
But yeah.
Both of them.
Yep.
He's probably the most influential on a lot of American film directors of the 60s and 70s and 80s and on.
I think he's also the first, I don't know if it's Asian, but for sure like Japanese, I think, to win an award at a film festival. So like the 50s, I think it was Cannes or something maybe, or whatever was over there.
He was so influential and great. One of the filmmakers that I mentioned earlier, John Cassavetes, who did A Woman Under the Influence, he was at a gathering, and Kurosawa was there. And, he's older than John at this point. He's made more movies, and he's very influential. And John had gotten word that Kurosawa wanted to talk to him, and he was so terrified. And this is a guy who wasn't terrified of anyone, wasn't terrified of Hollywood, wasn't terrified. And he just ran from him the whole night. And he left because Kurosawa was like, hey, I want to tell you something. And he's like, no, because he was so afraid of what is he going to say about what he saw. He hates my movies. And Kurosawa was like, I wanted to tell you, I really liked them. Really, you're doing a great job. And he was like, I can't even imagine what like talking to you would be like.
Yeah, well, that's funny.
So this guy, Kurosawa, was great.
Yeah.
And he made, prolific. How many movies did he make?
It's like Yojimbo is another great one.
I think it's like 30 movies, maybe more.
Yeah.
Something like that. But he made tons. Great guy.
There's also a ton of like kind of going off like Asian cinema, like the gun fu movies like John Woo. Even like early Jackie Chan movies
Mission
are really
Impossible.
fun.
Directed a couple of those.
Yeah. Old Boy is a cool one too. It got remade recently, but the original's
Way
pretty
better.
sick. Yeah. So if you haven't checked out any Asian cinema, please do. It's really cool.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
lot
There's a bunch
good-
of cool stuff coming out there.
Yeah. No, thanks for
Even like the old stuff too. So
thanks for pushing that. I mean, one of the things both here at Helpful for Life and on the show What the Hell is Water that we want to do is help expose you guys to things you may have not been exposed to before. And you know, so if you've never watched Asian film, I mean, we've given you guys a couple of good ones to check out, and recognize that just because a movie is something that you haven't seen before, it's a little bit different. Maybe it's just genre you've never looked at before. Maybe it's from a time period where you've never watched a movie before. You know, go out of your comfort zone a little bit. Hopefully, these guys have done a good job of telling you that, oh, you know what, maybe I'm a big tough guy and I don't really ever watch animated films, but maybe Coco is something that you should watch. Maybe it'll make you think something. Maybe it'll make you feel something. At the very least, you know, you have something that you can talk about with some of your family, perhaps, and maybe you learn a little bit about culture. That's the cool thing about a lot of these movies is they make you feel things, they make you think things, they expose you to things, and also it's cool. One of my favorite things to do now is to try and find what was inspirational for this art that I'm looking at right now, right? And a bit of a tangent, but I've listened to a lot of funk and 70s music in the last year, and some disco and things like that. And man, it's like, wait, that's an Eminem song. Oh, that's that's a this
you
year.
hear where the samples.
Yeah, you hear where all the
Oh,
samples
yeah.
are from, and it's so cool because you're like, I like this song by itself, but it's also that, and now I'm never going to hear either of those songs the same again. And so that's one of my favorite things to do is I'm sitting there listening to Spotify. I'm like, ooh, that could go with that, or even like, oh, that could mash up with that, and you know, they say that imitation is the highest form of flattery, and so if you have people who are creating whole other movies and shows and things like that based off of the inspiration of somebody else, like that's how you know it's probably good. Not always, I will say not always, right? But a lot of times that's the case.
Would you mind?
You can butcher the greats.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Would you mind if I gave a couple honorable mentions?
Yeah,
shout-outs?
yeah. So we're gonna do that. We're gonna do that for each of you guys. But before we do that, I want to do just a quick rundown. We don't need the new synopsis or why you should watch it, but we'll just go give y'all's top 10, bottom to top, real quick. So Brandon, we'll start with you. Just kind of list off all 10.
That we just did?
You're 10, just from 10 to 1. Just read off those titles.
All right. I got Ocean's 11, Whiplash, The Departed, The Dark Knight, Mission Impossible Fallout, Spotlight, Miracle, Tropic Thunder, Arrival, and Coco.
I like it. Good list. And I don't think it came up, but when you said The Departed, it made me think of Good Will Hunting, which is a movie that
also a great
I really
movie.
like.
Great.
So I just figured I'd throw that one in there too. Adam?
Come and See, The Shawshank Redemption, Jurassic Park, The Big Lebowski, 12 Angry Men, There Will Be Blood, A Woman Under the Influence, Network, On the Waterfront, and It's a Wonderful Life.
For me, I had Rashomon, Dumb and Dumber, Raging Bull, The Apartment, Reservoir Dogs, Sunset Boulevard, Adaptation, Kill Bill, M, like the letter, just by itself, in case you're wondering how to look for that, and Seven Samurai.
Let me see that for a second. I haven't seen. I see Dumb and Dumber. That's the only one I've seen on that list. That's good. Let me see
Really?
your list, Adam. I'm just curious now, right? Yeah,
Oh, no, you've seen It's a Wonderful Life.
Jurassic
We talked
Park,
about
It's a
it.
Wonderful Life. So I've seen 2 of those. And then Brandon, let me grab yours. I've seen 1, 2, 3. So I've seen 6 of yours. So a little bit more.
Yeah, mine are a little more mainstream. In some
Hey,
cases, than
there's
anything else.
there's nothing wrong with that. I don't think there's anything wrong with
Oh
that.
no,
They're
Oh,
great.
no.
But all I know is that, and we're gonna come back to get some little bonus ones from you guys. But I don't know. For me, in this day and age, there's so many options, right? And not just for movies, but for TV shows. You can watch YouTube now. You shouldn't be watching YouTube. Hi, go to Helpful for Life. Please subscribe. We need to get to 500 followers so we can tell them when our stream breaks. So please, please subscribe. You can unsubscribe later if you don't like us. But there's so many options out there that it's hard to weed through it all to know what's worth watching and what's worth listening to, and also why. One of the things that I've come to appreciate a lot more within the last few years is paying a little bit closer attention to the things I'm consuming, right? Whether it's music, whether it's movies, whether it's TV. And that's honestly completely changed the experience for me. I used to be like, I'm not going to go watch a movie. That's like a 2 hours of my life that I'm just going to waste. And that was a little strong worded, but that's kind of how I thought for a while, because it's not an insignificant amount of time to be sitting there. And especially in this day and age where we're all busy and we want to do this, and and then it's going to cost me freaking $30 to go to the theater and stuff like that. So, I really appreciate you guys giving us this, because now I have a great watch list to go pull from. And that's kind of how I've been for the last 5-10 years or so. Is I very rarely watch something without somebody recommending it. And the algorithms can do an okay job, but also sometimes they're pushing things that they're pushing for other reasons, or aren't that great, but people like them because, for example, like a thriller where it gets those jump scares and things like that. It's like, yeah, a lot of people watch this and like this, but realistically, it's not that great. So it's cool to get these lists from you guys. So I appreciate it.
Yeah,
Well,
dude.
Thank you. Thank all y'all. It's great. Great stuff.
Well, cool. So we got each of your top 10s. So I want to go ahead and ask. I'm going to ask you guys a couple rapid fire questions. So I want you guys to don't think. You'll probably answer something that you may not like later, but I just want you to just say what comes to mind. So first off, any honorable mentions off the top of your head?
Yeah, there's a couple. I already kind of mentioned Star Wars, George Lucas, but if no one's seen his film American Graffiti, which is he did that before Star Wars, it's a good look into how the kind of teenage life in the 50s was like. It's a fun one. The very first vampire film, Nosferatu, from like the 20s, it's still super creepy and unsettling. It's a good one. And then an Italian film from, I think it's the 30s, Bicycle Thieves. It's a simple concept. This guy gets his bike stolen, but you kind of get to see like if you don't have a lot in your life and like how significant that can be if something so simple as a bike gets taken from you and its ripple effect. And yeah, that's what the whole movie's about. But it's pretty good. And also for a foreign film, I just think Amelie's pretty good too. So
I like the ripple effect. Bicycle, kind of similar to It's a Wonderful Life, different way probably.
right,
But
yeah. Yeah, and then Amelie is also a great foreign film. If you haven't
how do you
seen
spell that?
Amelie, I
Close,
think.
close enough for people to find that one in the Googles.
Yeah, I mean it's a girl with like a black hair, bob haircut. So
Cool. Yeah, that's the poster.
yeah.
All right. What about you, Adam?
My honorable mentions, I gotta throw Kubrick in there.
Yeah.
We kind of left Kubrick out a little bit. I'll say one that you must see in your lifetime is 2001: A Space
Yeah,
Odyssey.
it's a great movie.
Gotta see it. I don't even know how to even tell you what
Yeah.
that is. I don't even know. It's about time and create the life and create. I don't even know what do you say.
I mean, you've heard the "I'm sorry, Dave, I can't do that." Like you've heard that a million times from stuff. I'm
the
sure.
pod bay
even
doors,
if,
Hal.
yeah. So like you've heard it referenced everywhere, even if you haven't seen the movie. And if you see the movie, you'll be like, "Hey, I finally know what they're talking about."
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like Chris Nolan before Chris Nolan in some ways, like
Yeah.
the mind bending and the really getting you to think about things. So
A Clockwork Orange is great too.
oh my gosh,
Yeah.
Clockwork Orange, awesome. My favorite Kubrick movie is Eyes Wide Shut.
It's a great movie too.
Unbelievable how good that movie is. I just so I'm going to mention those two. I gotta say, sports. You made me think of Rocky.
Okay.
Rocky's one of my favorite movies of all time. Just very feel good, very good. And then A Separation.
Oh,
Asghar Farhadi, Irani film, came out in 2010.
it's a great movie.
Unreal writing. The
Yeah.
writing. It's a drama, family drama. Feels very like, normal, low key, kind of going through a divorce. Oh man, it's a crime drama wrapped in a custody battle, but like seen through the eyes of a child. And this guy Farhadi is like one of the best modern era writers, one of the best writers of all time, because his movies are great. His movie The Salesman's really great as well. But yeah, I'd have to say those are my honorable mentions.
Speaking of divorce, it made me think of Kramer vs. Kramer. Which is
Fantastic.
also great. Dustin Hoffman's great.
Meryl Streep, Dustin Hoffman,
Yeah, go see it.
made by a Texas filmmaker.
And just so everyone knows, it's Stanley Kubrick is his full name. He's a director and writer.
Yeah.
Um,
He also
Yeah.
did The Shining.
oh, nice.
Yeah.
And the talking about how he's an AI.
Hal is an AI.
Yes.
Yeah. So
Yes.
it made me also think of her, right?
Yes,
Tied back
call
to that.
her.
Yeah.
That's right.
I have not seen 2001: Space Odyssey either, so I need to see that one.
Just
This one.
throw it on.
Yeah.
That's all I'll say.
All right, Brandon, what you got? Honorable
Throw a bone,
mentions.
Yeah, so I got a few honorable mentions. One that comes to mind most recently is The Harder They Fall. If you guys like westerns,
I haven't seen that.
It's a
haven't
good
either.
one. I think it's a Netflix movie, so it's on Netflix. Harder They Fall. Essentially, two Western gangs. One of the head of the gang members, is imprisoned. He's released. The other gang doesn't like that he's been released. He was broken out essentially. So then he goes, okay, well now I have to go after him and seek revenge on him essentially. So it's got a fantastic twist as well and mixed in there that I never saw coming. So that made it even better.
Yeah.
But one of the best westerns I've seen in a long time. Another sports movie that I really loved was I, Tanya. I don't know if you guys have seen that. It's
I didn't see it.
It's
Heard it was
the
great.
biopic essentially
Tanya Harding?
about Tanya Harding.
Okay.
It's her story told through her eyes
Okay.
versus the media's eyes and what she was sent out to be.
Which is such a cool concept. Like I just
Yeah.
love that idea of
yeah.
people retelling their story. Another one, I don't know if they were involved in it, but the Tommy and Pam one, where it's just like, hey, you may know what you
Right.
know from the media, but here's another side of what it looks like, right?
Yeah, and
I mean, I've seen one side of it.
the I, Tanya's got quite a few faces you'll recognize in there as well. And then my last I'll mention would be Django Unchained. Django Unchained is
Tarantino.
my favorite Tarantino movie.
Oh man.
You can rank Tarantino movies out and be here all day discussing those,
Yeah,
but
could.
Django takes my number one spot for my favorite Tarantino movie. And per usual, it's got fantastic storytelling, and the last 30 minutes, 45 minutes of the movie is notoriously gory.
Banger soundtrack.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, so for your honorable mentions, I'll let you guys give a little bit more descriptions, but now I just want a title. All right, first thing that comes to your head. So, an anime people should watch, Danny.
As like their very first anime.
Yeah.
Cowboy Bebop.
Okay, and then one that they should watch after they watch that, or people who appreciate anime, one they should watch.
Depends what you like. I tend to like slice of life romantic comedies because apparently I'm a 14-year-old Japanese girl. My favorite one is probably Golden Time. But if you like more action-based stuff, what's another one that's pretty good that I like? Besides ones that are like super popular, or like Naruto, My Hero Academia, Demon Slayer, they're all popular for a reason. If you don't want to watch something that has a ton of episodes, don't watch Naruto. So there's like 700 total.
Nice.
One Piece is amazing, but they're still going, and they're like 1,000+ episodes. Demon Slayer is badass, and it's still ongoing right now. But the animation just gets better and better every episode. It's ridiculous. So it's fun. Art style is pretty unique too. My Hero Academia is, if you like superhero stuff, it's a very unique take on how superheroes operate and work in a world. And
All right, I'm cutting you off.
it's pretty fun.
That's good.
Yeah, I'll talk for 6 hours. About
I know.
anime,
I gave you the anime, and then I said one other topic we may talk about in the future is how you consume a movie. Because one thing that Danielle, my wife, does that I never do is she'll watch movies and shows just in the background while she's like cooking or doing whatever. She'll just have her thing over there, and she'll just like kind of be listening. Sometimes she'll go over and watch, which is something I've never done. But if I were gonna watch something like Naruto, that's like 900 episodes, and I have no idea how much that would take away from it because I know a lot of it's visual. But I just figured I'd mention that there are more ways to watch something than giving it your full undivided attention. That being said, some things like, for example, Game of Thrones, I would never watch that while I'm not sitting there with my full attention because, I mean, there's one scene where it's literally a 2-second scene and a main character dies. and that's like the only mention of it for a while. And then you'd be like, what? I don't know what happened. All right, so Adam, basketball movie.
Oh man.
Shot clock. 5, 4, 3, 2. Yeah, I know. I was just Space Jam.
Hoosiers in Space Jam.
Hoosiers and Space Jam. I like it.
Ooh.
Baseball movie.
Coach Carter.
Rookie of the Year. That's the first thing that came to mind.
I like it.
Major League. There
Angels,
you go.
Major League, dude. Yes.
Is that
Major
the
League, much better.
is that
League of Their
the
Own?
Major League. That's the recommended one.
what's the women baseball
League of Their Own.
movie? League of Their Own.
Oh, League of Their Own.
Also
yeah.
fantastic.
That's another really good
Awesome.
one. Car movie.
Car movie. Gone in 60 Seconds.
Movie where the acting is really good.
Or
Oh.
Bullet. Or Bullet.
So many. I'm just gonna say Terms of Endearment.
All right. Golf movie.
Legend of Bagger Vance. Easy.
Nice. Legend of Bagger Vance. Movie for people to watch on a date.
Too many.
Movie for people to watch on a date.
First date.
Blue Valentine.
First date. Man. Game night.
Game night. Nice. Movie that makes you pee your pants.
Man, I love Nacho Libre, dude.
Nacho!
Or School of Rock. I like School of Rock a lot
I
too.
love School.
School of Rock. That's not only a funny
Jack
movie,
Black.
but
I just really like Jack Black.
that's just an all-around
Yeah,
good
I
movie.
recently watched
I think.
School of Rock. It's great.
Yeah, and it holds up very well too.
Yeah, it does.
And the music in that one is so much fun, and it's very much heartfelt.
It makes you miss Jack Black.
Yeah,
I need more Jack Black in my life.
yeah.
Absolutely.
I was like, wait, did he die? I was like, please tell me.
No,
please
he's
tell me.
just not in his movies anymore.
Yeah, and I think that's cool.
He's also a very good serious actor too.
Yeah.
He is.
Yeah.
It's funny. I just
Like
mentioned
Bernie's pretty good.
Bernie's great.
Even in The Holiday, he's pretty good too.
to go away from the serious, but back to something else was yesterday I was mentioning Jack Black. Oh man, now I'm blanking on it. Danielle. Oh, Tenacious D.
Yeah. Shout out
sure.
Tenacious D.
She hasn't seen that yet. I'm like, all right, I'll watch that one with you. Don't worry. This is the greatest song in the world.
You should watch the HBO miniseries they did when their first album came out.
Nice.
It's amazing.
All right, one movie on top of your head.
Acting. One movie.
I'm not saying I'm giving you easy prompts.
So sorry. I'm blanking on. There's nothing on my. It's all the movies we've mentioned. So.
Female lead.
Oh, Sophie's Choice.
It's a good movie. Yeah.
All right,
A little dark.
a movie that you either turned off or you wished you turned off.
Oh my gosh. Downsizing. Worst movie I've ever seen. Holy cow. Do not watch Downsizing.
Oh.
The trailer was so deceptive to what the actual movie was, and it was a pile of shit.
Oh, that's great.
Wait. Before Sunrise. That's what I wanted to say.
Before Sunrise.
Before Sunrise. Richard Linklater. We're talking
Yeah.
about Bernie and School of Rock, and that's a great movie.
I like it. I like it.
Linklater's got some great stuff.
Great. Texas.
Yep.
Well, I don't know how you guys are feeling, but I'm certainly excited. There's a lot of things that I have now on my watch list. We got a lot of those down in chat already, but the ones we didn't, we'll compile for you guys and make sure to add those either in the description or in a comment. And I'm sure we'll share this stuff on social media as well. So again, today we wrapped up our top 5 movies that these guys think everyone should see. As you heard with Brandon, these are not necessarily their favorite movies. A lot of them are, but they're more so movies that they think people should see at some point in their lives. And these guys gave a lot of a wide variety of reasons, a wide variety of genres. a wide variety of directors, but also some directors that repeated. So it's an interesting thing all around. I really enjoyed it. Hopefully you guys at home enjoyed it too. Yesterday, our challenge for you guys was to tell us what your top 10 lists are, or at the very least, commentate on ours. Today, our challenge is going to be go watch one of these movies that you haven't seen and tell us. Do you think you're full of crap? Do you think like, wow, that's amazing?
Yes.
I will say, last night Danielle and I watched Dumb and Dumber, and there's definitely some good moments in that movie, but I don't think I'd hold that as in high regard as you three do. I know, then might be fighting words.
I think
Then might be fighting words. I think that's one of those movies, kind of like Napoleon Dynamite, where it's like I think it's a decent movie, but I think more of its strength and power comes from the quoting afterwards and the things
I'll say hot take. Maybe I'm not a Napoleon Dynamite fan.
Yeah, there you go. So that's one where it's like it's different people like different movies for different things. So that's another thing I really want to encourage you guys is just because you watch one of these things and you think they're trash, doesn't mean that all of them are trash. So make sure you try them out and try and get something fun out of it, right? We're talking about expectations with a comedy, but that's not just a comedy. Don't go into the movie thing like, this is the best movie ever and all that kind of stuff. Just go. One of the things I like to go is into it was like, hey, entertain me. Make me feel something, make me think something, whatever. But just kind of sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Yeah, I don't know. It was natural. It was cheesy, but it just like. All right, boys. Any final words before we cut the tape?
I can't because I'll talk for 2 more hours.
It's a good choice. Good choice.
Yeah.
Hey, love to see feedback from anybody if they think our movies are shit or not.
Yes, please do, especially if you think they're shit, because we want to hear. So, everybody, with that, have a wonderful rest of your day. Happy Friday. And weekends are a great time to watch movies. So go check one out this weekend and let us know what you guys think. And with that, we'll see you guys later.
See ya.